My name's Buddy Ray. I'm the Executive Director of the Community Action Partnership of Orange County. We're the lead agency for a grant called Orange County Partnerships in Community Health, given to us by the Department of Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in a 3-year grant. About 4 years ago, one of our staff, Dolores Barrett, was searching around for what might be available to help support the agency and help Community Action Partnership meet our mission of serving poor people in Orange County, trying to help them to become self-sufficient, improve their lives and their communities. And she found this grant. There was an effort to coordinate with other agencies because it was a big grant, a 3-year period, over $1 million a year, about $4 million over a 3-year period. There was an agreement that the Community Action Partnership would apply for the grant and receive it, and then we would work with partners. We have 10 of them up here on the stage today to improve communities, and we focused on Garden Grove, Santa Ana, and Anaheim. So we've had a very successful project up to now, and that success is because of a lot of different people. And I'll start off by recognizing our staff, Dolores Barrett, Belinda Ong, Natalie Anderson, and John Nguyen. And then the folks at the front table will be introduced as we go along. So it's been a very successful project from our point of view. We're disappointed that it's coming to an end because so much good has been done and helpful in the communities. So we're going to continue to look for additional resources to try and continue the effort, even if we can't continue the specific project. So thank you for being here today. I hope you hear a lot of good information. Be active, be aggressive, be happy, have a good time today, and continue the good work that we've all been doing. Thanks a lot. And now I want to introduce Mo Sami from UCI, who's been the lead agency for or the lead person for UCI, and she'll be the moderator for the rest of the day. Thank you.
Actually, I have a partner in moderation. I was going to say crime, but in moderation. And so my name again is Mo. I'm one of the evaluators, UCI, as one of the evaluators for OC PICH, and this is my partner.
Yeah, hi, good morning. My name is Art Garcia, and I'm with Special Service for Groups with the Research and Evaluation Department, and we also helped out with the evaluation.
So we did it together. I really want to thank everybody at the table. This couldn't have happened without everybody here today and the communities that we work in. So I really want us to understand that this partnership is one of the most amazing networking opportunities I've seen in actual project implementation and evaluation. So really, really have that in your hearts as we present. I wanted to mention something about evaluation that I think we should all be on the same page on, and that is that evaluation can take place in many different forms. So for example, SSG and UCI were part of the evaluation process, and we collected evidence-based evaluation. But what you're going to hear actually from our partners are case-based and best practice evaluation as well. Because we actually, in the field, there's different ways to have lessons learned and analyze our success to be able to tell the impact story. So SSG and UCI don't necessarily provide an evaluation overall. This is the way we provide it to you in terms of lessons learned, what we learned from evidence, what we learned from case studies, and what we learned to improve our practices to build healthy communities and decrease chronic disease. Make sense? Excellent. So I wanted us to understand also the way that the agenda will work. We're doing this in chunks. So if you notice on your agenda, the panelists that will present will be presented first in the physical activity in schools and parks, and then we'll go to active transportation, and then connecting physical health to nutrition. And as I noted, partnerships and collaboration are the heart of OC PICH. So we have a special presentation from SSG on that. The evaluations have been done both in quantitative and qualitative methodologies. For the evidence-based, they've been very rigorous. So we've really thought about the way we collect data, how we can make it consistent. And the other panelists are going to tell you about their case studies, what they learned in the field during practice. So without further ado, I would like to hand it over to our panelists who will do self-introductions, just to save time, not because I don't want to honor them with 5 hours of introduction. But please help me welcome our panelists, and we'll go through the physical activity in schools and parks first. Please help me welcome them.
Good morning. My name is Carrie Tuggle, and I'm representing the schools portion from Orange County Department of Education. And before I begin, I just want to acknowledge my colleague, Chris Corliss, who's in the room, because he's really the person really behind this project. So I just want to acknowledge that he's here with us today as well. So the schools with OCDE, we are part of PICH in the schools as we have a program called Move More, Eat Healthy in Schools, and it's really looking at increasing physical activity and nutrition education for our low-income students. So we were in the 3 cities, Garden Grove, Santa Ana, and Anaheim. And as you can see, we were able to reach quite a number of schools and students and teachers in those 3 districts. What's really important about this is the scalability that is provided by working in schools in this way. So it is definitely cost-effective and cost-efficient for the type of programs that we did in schools, around 40 cents per kid per year. So we'll get into that a little bit more in the next slide. So our project outcomes for working in the schools for this part of the project was to increase opportunities for physical activity and PE in the schools. We wanted to improve health and fitness outcomes, on-task behavior, academic performance, and engagement. For teachers, we are looking to provide them with no prep, low cost, no cost tools so that it would make it easy for easy for teachers to provide students with opportunities for physical activity. It's really important because these schools that we worked with, in these particular schools, they do not have a lot of opportunity for physical activity, both in the schools necessarily and outside of the schools in their communities. So we want to make sure that we were providing that access to them. We like to talk about the health and fitness gap that goes along with these schools. So sometimes you'll hear a lot about the health gap and academic gaps, but the health gap is, when we're looking at low-income schools, there's going to be higher incidence of obesity, other health-related issues that are tied to inactivity and poor nutrition. So this is just looking at some of the data that we have comparing our 5th graders through the physical fitness testing. And we're comparing our low-income schools in which we were working with our non-low-income schools. And you can see that there's a big difference in the scores as related to passing the physical fitness test and in the number of kids that are overweight or obese and in the number of kids that are at risk for metabolic syndrome. So the PFT data, those students that pass, that is correlated to academic performance. So we want them to be, if they're passing more of those tests, we know that they tend to do better on those tests. So they're doing better in school. With the overweight and obese, that's important. It looks at body composition. That's important because there's a correlation with that and socio-emotional health, and then also chronic disease later in life. So we want to make sure and impact that. And then the metabolic syndrome, these students had 3 of the 5 risk factors. So, or more. So that's how that put them in this, this area. And again, you can see that our kids in the low-income schools are doing much worse, unfortunately. So we know that that's where we want to put our efforts. So, Move More, Eat Healthy at schools. We were able to do some surveying with some of our teachers, and we found that in the beginning, some of our teachers were not providing a lot of activity in the classroom and outside of the classroom. Through providing these tools and resources to them and training, we saw nearly a 50% increase in the willingness of teachers to provide that physical activity to their students in the classroom. This is one of my favorite slides. So if you look at this, you'll see there's 2 brains. On one side, there's a color difference. On the one side, it's a student brain that's been sitting for 20 minutes prior to a test. On the other side, there's a student that had 20 minutes of physical activity, walking, prior to a test. So we can see that the brain activity is much increased after that 20 minutes of activity. So what we're trying to show here, And also, so on those tests, there's an increase in test scores, there's an increase in on-task behavior, there's reduced behavioral issues. So just that little bit of physical activity awakens your brain and makes you more open to these things, more capable in the classroom. So that is another reason why we want to get those kids moving. So I know there's a lot of students in the room today, so just think about it. If you're getting ready for that test, take a walk around your classroom first, around your campus, and you'll do better. So we had 2 interventions in the schools, primarily through OCDE. One was a fit kit, and the other was a fit center. We have some more information at our table talk later, so you can see more what's in those fit kits or fit centers. But basically, the kit was to be utilized in the classroom by the teacher. The centers was a room set aside where they could engage the students in physical activity.
Good morning, I'm Kelsey Kinsey with Kid Healthy. I'm going to start by laying the groundwork of who we are and the program that we worked with OC PICH. Kid Healthy is a local nonprofit here in Orange County. We started in 2003, and we implement programs that measurably improve nutrition and fitness levels for the families and the communities here in Orange County. We have 2 programs, Padres in Action, which is the program I'll be discussing today. That's a parent-led structured recess and nutrition education program, currently implemented in 42 schools and 6 school districts throughout Orange County. Our second program is called Cooking Up Change, and that's a high school culinary competition for culinary students to recreate school lunches that can actually be served in the school cafeteria. Okay, so what is Padres in Action? It's a training program. We begin with about 30 to 40 parents at a school site and train them in different topics such as the school wellness policy, advocacy. What does that word mean, and how do you become a successful advocate for your child in their school and in their community? We talk about different nutrition education topics, physical activity and the importance of being physically active, PE, and what the difference is between PE and physical activity. And then we get into the nuts and bolts of playground management and safety and how to implement a structured recess program at their school site. Following the training, these lead parents go out onto the school's campus during lunch recess and implement an active recess program Monday, Wednesday, and Friday during lunch recess and set up games and activities to keep kids active through recess time. They will also meet monthly and continue their education on nutrition and physical activity. They actually do it on a peer-to-peer model, so it's actually a lead parent that's teaching the other parents what they've learned. So our goals with the program is to empower parents to be leaders in nutrition and physical activity, to create healthy habits at home and in the community, and to have healthy and active families. So why do we focus on the parents? The parents are the primary influence of a child, and parents play a vital role in the development of a child, and it's not just at home, it's also at school. So we work with the parents to be able to bridge the gap between what's happening at the school and also what's happening at home. There's many studies that show that children do better when their parents are more involved in their education, and children tend to do better in school, get better test scores, more likely to graduate, have higher self-esteem, and less behavioral issues. And Padres in Action gives a perfect opportunity for the parents to get involved in the school setting. So to go into a little bit of our outcomes with our 3 years with OC PICH, year 1, we were able to expand the program into 3 schools. This gave us a solid footing in Anaheim Elementary School District. Year 2, we expanded into 2 new schools and continued our work with the 3 schools from year 1. And then year 3, we expanded into 3 new schools and again continued the work that we were doing with the schools from year 1 and year 2. One of the really great outcomes that happened with the OC PICH was that we were able to enter a new school district, Garden Grove Unified. We had never worked with Garden Grove prior to OC PICH and the resources that were available through OC PICH, and now we're in 7 schools throughout Garden Grove. So in total, we were able to expand to 8 new school sites. We've trained 170 parents in our new site training curriculum. We've had 2,120 volunteer occurrences. 690 parents have been trained through the monthly nutrition education classes that we host. And on average, the schools are receiving about 7,000 minutes of increased quality and skill-based physical activity during the school day. We've also been able to develop boot camp events. This is a special event. It's different than the regular days on the playground during recess. And this was made possible through OC PICH to be able to get special equipment to bring into these schools and host a boot camp event. It increases the intensity of the physical activity, and we noticed that a lot more parents are engaged during these special recess events. One of our outcome measurements that we utilize is called SOPLAY, which a lot of the UCI students might be familiar with. Mo was actually helpful in training us on how to develop the SOPLAY reporting methods. It's a CDC recommended reporting method, and what we do is we go into the school site on 2 different days. On a day that's an intervention day, so a day with Padres in action, and a day that's a non-intervention day, so a day that Padres in action is not on the playground. And we measure the students' activity levels. We count the sedentary activity, the moderate activity, and the vigorous activity. And then we compile the data, put it into an Excel sheet, and it provides these great outcomes. So this particular outcome is done at Heritage Elementary, which is from Garden Grove Unified. Padres in Action was able to decrease, when Padres in Action was present, was able to decrease sedentary activity by 29.6%, and increase moderate activity by 10%, and increase vigorous activity by 24%. This is just numbers, and even if you were to just stand and just visually observe the difference between a Padres in Action day versus a non-Padres in Action day, it's a huge difference. Very often we are out there and we see that the schools don't even have equipment to play with during recess time, or the kids are standing around and they're on the perimeter of the playground at the fence just kind of kicking rocks and hanging out. So the numbers show great outcomes, but just to be able to see it in person also can show you and tell a huge story. So as far as our sustainability plan goes, OC PICH schools will continue going into next school year. The way that we typically start our Padres in Action schools is that we offer grant funding to get them up and running for the first year, maybe the second year. And then they roll over to a fee-for-service basis and they begin to pay for the program themselves. So we are currently having those conversations with the school principals about renewing the program and paying for the program next school year. And as of right now, see that 100% of our schools will be moving forward with that model. In fact, year 1 schools are already paying for half the program price. We will continue our collaborative objectives that this group of OC PICH partners have set out, increasing physical activity, nutrition ed, and creating healthy communities. And we've already put a step forward of doing that. We've applied for a grant with Kaiser Permanente in collaboration with OCDE to continue their work with their Fit Kid centers, as well as KPOC to work on some school gardens and walking programs. So there's just a few pictures of Padres in Action on the playground. You can visit our table for more information and to see more pictures. We got a slideshow going on back there. And that's it.
Good morning, everyone. How's the volume? I'm a very loud person, so I don't even know if I need that. Probably could have kept it in front of Kelsey, and you still would have heard me. Welcome to Garden Grove, everybody. We are very, very happy to be the host city for this forum, and I am speaking on behalf of John Montanchez and Aaron Webb, who are unable to attend today, so I'm very pleased to let you know just how excited Garden Grove is to be a partner with OC PICH. I think, let's see. All right, I'm going to try this out, because we have a video, too, so John's on standby. OC PICH has been a very important partner in the city's goal to improve the overall health of our community, and we can see literally tangible results of the support, and we'll show you that in video format and in PowerPoint too. While we're listed in the agenda under physical activity in schools and parks, one of the largest support components from OC PICH with Garden Grove has been their marketing efforts. I don't know if that's the case with the other cities too, but they were tremendous in supporting a program, a movement, a phenomenon, we like to call it, of those of us behind Open Streets. Andrew knows about this too. Open Streets was a little bit difficult for us to introduce to the community. We had a lot of support from our council, which was wonderful, but it's difficult to educate the community about, so we're closing streets, but you're calling it open streets. And this was based on, it was it was open streets for closed-minded people for a little while there for us here in Garden Grove. It was a little bit of a tough nut to crack, but thank goodness we had residents like Andrew who were, it's going to be great, it's going to be good, and our mayor was wonderful too. So this is based on what occurs, probably 50 years ago in Colombia, where they shut down miles and miles and miles of streets for bicycling, walking, skateboarding, music, art. Sort of pop-up festivals, if you will. It's a look into the future of your community. What would you like it to be? And we launched this about 5 years ago, and it was very important that we launch it with some sort of celebration, if you will, in Garden Grove. So Open Streets is very important to Garden Grove, and we had a very integral partnership in OC Pitch, and they jumped on board right away, and we are very, very grateful. The idea behind it is to get the community more involved in Garden Grove, to educate them on different forms of active transportation. Mo is very much aware of Aaron Webb's push to get more bike and pedestrian and walkability and more bike lanes and such in Garden Grove. And Open Streets was a way to sort of introduce this agenda to everyone, because we have been very much for the past 60 years quite the bedroom community, and we're trying to kind of catch up with the cities surrounding us. We did have some great support from elected officials, as I said. We also had water buffaloes from our Public Works Department. I think that's the middle photo there. And they sort of rigged on their own these old-fashioned style water fountains, which was really cool, connected to a water buffalo that's actually brought out in emergency situations. But we thought, well, this is kind of an emergency in Garden Grove. We need to get people on a bike out of their car and walk around and share ideas with us of what they would like the future of Garden Grove to look like. So we had tremendous support from our council, from our other public works departments and such. So it was a very exciting day, a very nervous day for us when we had that first Open Streets event, but we're really on a roll now. So I think, John, if you can play, we have GGTV3, we have our own in-house cable division, which produces news pieces for us every couple of weeks. So let's take a look at their perspective on Open Streets.
This is Gordon Spencer with a Garden Grove TV3 News Report. Ever wondered what the city of Garden Grove might look like without cars? This is it.
The streets actually belong to the people. They're ours, and they're not just for cars.
I'm riding down the middle of Garden Grove Boulevard on this beautiful Sunday afternoon, exploring Garden Grove in a whole different way, just like these folks are here on Main Street, riding and walking.
Riding your bike on the street and feeling safe and carefree, you know, like everybody's a fourth grader, that's just a great experience.
That experience is Reimagine Garden Grove, a downtown open streets event. It's part of the city's 20-year plan to bring about a great downtown area.
What we wanted to do is to take some of those future ideas and try to create them in the present so people would get excited and enthusiastic and kind of catch the vision.
Today, I really got to experience what the restaurants have to offer, and there's so much different things, and there's so many things to kind of see and look around.
Looking around, there is a lot to see and do. Lion dancers on Main Street.
Great job, babe.
Showing off your creativity by painting an old classic car.
3, 2, 1.
Building and launching your own paper rocket.
There you go.
Sharing your life goals with the world.
Come on, let's go.
And cycling on a new trail, the old Pacific Electric right-of-way.
I'm in the middle of Acacia Parkway and Euclid Street, and look what I found, a BMX demonstration going on.
Check it out, Mike Big, right up and over.
The concept with the open streets kind of helps to bring everybody kind of together. I just think it's a great event.
3 miles of streets were opened, and an estimated 10,000 cyclists, skateboarders, and walkers of all ages came out and joined the city of Garden Grove for this inaugural 5-hour Open Streets event.
This event kind of shows how much hope there is for the future of Garden Grove.
This is Gordon Spencer reporting.
Thank you, John. So the 10,000 people that were there, we really have to give a lot of credit to OC Pitch. They did newspaper ads, they did bus tail ads, they did over-the-street banners for us. They jumped in right away, and they were a tremendous marketing resource for us. So that sort of led to, well, year one, let's keep going. Also in year one, we had, click, hopefully, maybe. It's frozen, I think. Yay! Outdoor fitness equipment. It was a really, really busy year of partnership, year one with OC Pitch. We installed an 8-piece outdoor fitness equipment that was manufactured by Greenfield, and this was our 4th installment in one of our many parks in Garden Grove. Some of the initial observations of Eastgate Park, which is where that is, was the number of people that used the park to get their daily fitness activities in. Went out and surveyed that, and it was already very, very busy without any equipment in place. We had some large success with 3 previous installments. One is right outside of our senior center, and we were really confident that we should keep this train rolling and get more in. And of course, OC Pitch was right there by our side. What do you need? And we're very, very grateful for them. And also, I think this is the same. Thank you. There was a small little hiccup though. We did our best to locate the fitness pieces in a shady area. But we ended up getting a little bit too close to the shade trees, which created a bit of a problem with a tree roots system. Enter our Public Works Department. So we learned that we need to stay at least 8 feet from shade trees. You learn things, right? When you put things, isn't this great? Oh. And we've had lots of suggestions from users. We have a very engaged and involved and vocal community in Garden Grove that they are dying for a shade canopy. Took over the equipment. I know everyone's seen those over some. But those approximately are about $50,000. So at this juncture, we do not have that in the budget. But that's okay. It's getting used very, very often. And in this picture here, same instance with the next one. When we were dedicating this, we actually had to politely shoo folks to get off of the equipment for a minute so we could stage that lovely ribbon cutting over there, because people are on it even before we can dedicate it. They're hungry for it, which is really, really nice to see. That's the whole goal of our partnership, right? So year one was very, very busy, and it was a mutual love society between City of Garden Grove and OC Pitch, I can tell you that. Like, what else will they do with us? Year two. Oh, terrific. Garden Grove Park. Another set of outdoor fitness equipment, and this is our largest and busiest park. Thankfully at this park, because it's so huge, we were able to identify a location with more mature trees. So it did help with the shade for most of the day, so I don't anticipate that we'll be looking for a shade canopy for that park there. And then some feedback from the first installment at Eastgate Park, which we saw prior, suggested more equipment for leg workouts. We actually listened to our community. So this set of equipment reflected that need, some feedback that was very important to us. We have 11 pieces in this photo, and 3 of which are dedicated to the lower body workouts that we heard about. And again, we chose Garden Grove Park because it has a very high volume of park users, and folks are already in Garden Grove Park, walking, skating, doing Tai Chi, everything. So it feels like we would really be remiss if we could not put something there to enhance their workout and enhance their overall health. So thank you, OC Pitch again. And I think another picture. Yes. Here's the other picture where, again, we had to tell people, do you mind getting off of the equipment for a minute? Because the mayor needs to step in here, and Brenda needs to get in here, and John's taking a picture. It's wonderful to see, even beforehand, people were hopping the fence to get over onto the equipment to work out on it, so, which is a good thing and sometimes a bad thing, but it was wonderful to have that there, so. And year two. We're busy with OC Pitch in our 3 years. These. I don't know if others, well, I know Anaheim has these, but these are park signs. Again, thank you, courtesy OC Pitch. It's a big component of getting people active and healthy is our ability, obviously, to get the word out about what we are offering for free or extremely low cost, mostly free. So year two budget allowed us to place these park sign structures to advertise our classes, our healthy health and wellness programs that we offer. So we have 10, and we are looking to add about 5 more. So again, terrific marketing tool OC Pitch has been for Garden Grove. This is a classic example, and also the fact that they really helped us get 10,000 super excited people to our inaugural event. So right now we are back at Eastgate Park, and we are, due to high demand and community feedback, we're adding a fitness trail. And we have OC PICH to thank for that too. So just in closing, since I've got about 15 seconds, the video took up the most of my time, we're just a very proud recipient of OC PICH funding. Their ideas and their passion for health and wellness really complement our community services goals, our city leaders' goals. So we look forward to many more opportunities in the future to partner. So thank you.
Good morning. So my name is Javier Gonzalez, and I am the Healthy Communities Director with the Anaheim YMCA. And so I'm here to talk about OC PICH and how it helps supplement our after-school program, Anaheim Achieves. So as the leading convener of community-based solutions for healthy eating and active living, the Anaheim YMCA has utilized PICH funding to promote daily physical activity for approximately 3,000 youth in our after-school program, Anaheim Achieves. Anaheim Achieves is an award-winning after-school program at 48 schools in Anaheim, including elementary, junior high, and high school. And we've been this award-winning program for the last 18 years. So what we did specifically was PICH funding allowed us to support the California state law that mandates that every student needs to receive 200 minutes of physical activity every 10 school days in elementary schools, and 400 minutes every 10 school days in secondary schools, so junior highs and high schools. And so as an organization, we continue to lead 4,000 students in a minimum of 30 minutes of daily, moderate to vigorous physical activity during after-school programming. And we led students in related after-school lesson plans that built awareness of the importance of nutrition and physical activity by using a Fab 5 curriculum. Fab 5 is a curriculum that's created by classroom, PE, and health teachers, and it's aligned with California Department of Ed standards. And so the effectiveness has been great because through OC PICH, we've been able to purchase these supplies. These are some of the kids with the supplies, and supplement the work that the schools are already doing during the daytime program, and what we were doing during the after-school program. And so utilizing these supplies, our staff have been able to complement the Fab 5 curriculum and provide our students with additional physical activity time. And I think to Kelsey's point that she had mentioned, that many schools have limited equipment during daytime program, during recess, and what they've seen through Padres en Acción is a lot, that leads to a lot of sedentary kids just kind of sitting around. They don't have this equipment to play with. And so we've been able to supplement that at the very least through our after-school program and through this PICH grant. And so this allowed us to be more diverse with our physical activity and offering a range of activities for the students that didn't necessarily have a structured play time, specifically at secondary schools. Secondary schools have an allotted PE time. So what our after-school program offers is an additional active play time during the after-school program. And then many students were exposed to moderate and vigorous physical activity where with our new supplies we were able to cater to the students who needed either mild or even just moderate. We did have a lot of, we have an intramural sports program as well at the Anaheim YMCA. And so, you know, a lot of our kids are involved in the intramural sports program, so they're getting that vigorous activity already. So when they go to our after-school program, we were able to tailor what they've already did receive to moderate or to vigorous physical activity as well. And so, what we've been able to do is PICH funding is sunsetting this year. So as an organization at the Anaheim YMCA, what we did is we institutionalized a line item in our budget that allows us to buy items for the younger set, for those who can only stay within range of mild to moderate, and those who don't get a regular structured recess time. So that's been really helpful for us to include that in our policy and our systems. You know, we can, you know, buy equipment and or supplies to supplement this program, and once a grant sunsets, if we haven't put any policies or systems in place, then the sustainability is not going to be able to sustain itself after the grant. And so we've been able to do that is by institutionalizing those this line item into our regular year to year. And so we've been able to maximize our current partnerships with the school districts, Anaheim Elementary and Anaheim Union High School, to get elementary and junior high students more active. Both districts have allowed us to provide complementary materials and supplies through curriculum and through our physical activity supplies. And all the schools have given us space and storage to even store our supplies there. So there's been a great partnership between us and the school districts to not only supplement what they're doing during the daytime program, but even allow us to store the supplies that we've received through PICH. And through PICH, I've been able to meet some great resources and maximize the collaborations through the work that OCD is doing with Chris and the fit kits that they have at the schools, and also through Kelsey and Padres and Acción. We've been able to kind of maximize those collaborations and those partnerships beyond PICH, so it's been great for us as well. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Give them a motivating round of applause. Thank you. So I know I have students here, don't worry, I'm not gonna call you out, don't worry. But one of the reasons that schools, parks, and other institutions that have been historically in the community like the YMCA, one of the reasons that evidence-based shows they are important is because they're anchor institutions. Think about the place that everyone has to interact with. That is a school. You have parents, you have kids, you have all the community has to interact with the school. So that is part of the reason it's so important to introduce these concepts, make the resources available, put programming into place, because we know that healthy behavior starts at a young age. So then if you move forward and you think about the streets as a place for all people to interact. What a radical idea. It's not just for cars, what a radical idea. So thinking about these things from the evidence base, there was thought put into it. And I really want to highlight how important and risky this was for the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to actually do a 3-year project to be able to gather this evidence and to be able to say resources matter, partnerships matter, reimagining our country through our local interactions with our institutions, anchor institutions matter. The one thing that our evidence-based data collection and analysis did in the parks work, it shows that fitness zones matter, that they improve physical activity levels in a park. We can show that in Eastgate Park for sure. Every little magical statistical analysis that we did showed us it was statistically significant. And I want to just end with saying that socially significant is the creation of community in these anchor institutions. Because look at what every single one of these panelists have mentioned, our partners have mentioned, they got on the ground in connection with the community. And I think that concept has been qualitatively studied to make these institutions community building, not just increasing individual physical health, but it's an opportunity for community building for a healthy community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mo. And so now we'll go ahead and get into the next, oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
That's a really good question, Todd. Thank you. No extra credit, no. So I think the goal of the CDC is to use all of these reports that we'll give to them at the end of the project in September as evidence base for scaling up. So it's going to be communicated throughout the country from all the PICH projects, actually. We're not the only one. There was how many? 90 PICH projects throughout the nation. So imagine the work of the CDC after they get all the reports. So look out for that. I'm sure we're going to see a report in about a year after that to how do we scale this up? What is it that we learned? What is the evidence showing us? Definitely.
So we'll go ahead and move on now to active transportation. So we have a few panelists here to talk about that a little bit. And Just so we know what active transportation is, it's being able to be active in the modes and where you're going to school, to work, to go to the grocery store. So this is things like walking, biking, skateboarding. You can definitely skip to the store if you want to, but they're active, right? We're getting out of cars and we're being active to get to the destinations that we want to go to. So the folks here will talk about the different projects that they've been doing to improve and promote active transportation in the 3 pitch cities.
All right, so I got the unfortunate position to be sitting directly in the middle. So in order to look at the slide, I have to turn. So I'm gonna stand over here. My name is Corey Wilkerson. I'm the Active Transportation Coordinator for the City of Santa Ana. And that's Santa Ana right there. So I like to use this slide a lot when I'm doing introductions about myself, and it's great, especially when I'm talking to students. Raise your hand if you're a UCI student, or you're a student that's here right now. Yeah, anteaters in the house. Paul was an anteater too. I was not. So Mo and the rest of her colleagues are spending all this time teaching all of you if you're gonna take an idea from someone, you're gonna cite your sources, you're gonna list it in the bibliography. And I'm here to tell you that once you get out of college, that doesn't matter at all. So I'm a thief. I take ideas from absolutely everybody that I hear it from. I'm gonna give you no credit whatsoever. I'm gonna steal your idea mercilessly. I'm gonna put it in a document and you will never know that I did it, right? And I'm a sponge. I am constantly learning at all times in my career. There's new ideas that are always coming out, and I love to learn new ideas. Mo talks all kinds of stuff about evaluation. I'm like, oh, we don't need to do that. All right, fine. I guess we should at least study it a little bit. As long as it doesn't get in the way of me actually finishing the project. So when I started with the City of Santa Ana, there was a lot of existing engagement that was already happening. I wasn't there when KPOC and the city partnered together to write this grant application to apply for these funds. I just kind of came in right as it was starting, and they're like, hey, you have money. And I was like, yes, let's do something with it. In Santa Ana, we have a lot of active organizations that are already engaged in this idea of active transportation, walking and bicycling for physical fitness, for transportation. And one of our organizations, Latino Health Access, has led this idea of the wellness corridor. In Santa Ana, we're considered park poor. It's not that we don't have parks, we actually have quite a few parks. It's that our population density is we have so many residents within a small space that the acreage of parks cannot accommodate the amount of people that live in Santa Ana. So they came up with this idea of using our existing downtown, our commercial business district in our downtown, as a wellness corridor. They did walks, they have seniors that got really actively involved because we have a large senior population in our downtown. And they started looking at our downtown saying, okay, well, what do we need in order to make downtown Santa Ana have the quality of a park? So they created this document for the wellness corridor, all these things that they were asking for. So when KPOC came to the city of Santa Ana and said, hey, we want to partner with you guys and do this grant application, the city thought, great, we have an opportunity to implement some of these improvements that our community is asking for. It's super easy when our community says, hey, we want to do this, and then someone says, hey, we have money to do this, and we go, oh, it's really nice. So we took their route and we said, okay, we want to do a walking path on that route. How can we identify a walking path in our downtown while still maintaining the cultural significance of our downtown? And so the idea that we came up with was to put tiles in the pavement to show folks where to walk. We didn't have an artist that was available that we could pay because Pitch didn't fund the design of the tiles. So I got onto PowerPoint and designed these tiles myself. We went out to the community and had them pick which one that they liked. So these are what the tiles look like in the ground. This is the tile that the community picked. They asked me to make a few changes to it, and because I was the artist, I got to do that without getting charged for it. And then these were set into the ground and in a walking path in our downtown. And now, when the Wellness Corridor Committee organizes walks, they have mile markers that can direct them which way to go. We put in benches. Like I said, there's a lot of seniors in our downtown, and you'd be surprised at how much value a bench is for a senior. When they're walking, they need a place to be able to stop, take a moment and rest, and then keep walking again. That's how they maintain their physical fitness. The CDC had a really hard time grasping this concept. They came out, they looked at where we were going to be putting the benches, and they saw even one existing bench that we had and a senior sitting on it, and they said, see, they need it. And they went, oh, okay. And then when they went back and we said, hey, we want to put in more benches, they said, yeah, no, we're not going to pay for that. Okay, they didn't get it. That's all right. We got some benches though. We installed 8 benches in our downtown, and this was thanks to the advocacy that came out of that Wellness Corridor Committee. So I gotta give props where props is due. So this is my community. This is what I started the city with. When I first started with the city, we were doing this downtown complete streets plan in the same area where the Wellness Corridor is, which works out really nice. We had these workshops, and all of these people came out. We have kids, those kids up there in the upper right-hand corner. Those are the kids from KidWorks. Those kids that are sitting right there, they're in junior high and high school. They wrote a grant application for an infrastructure project for $2.4 million that the city received. Kids, younger than you guys, wrote a grant application and got the city $2.4 million. I'm going to give them credit for that. I'm not going to, but I am going to spend the money, so sorry, guys. So as one of the projects that was identified as we're doing this plan, and right as this pitch funding became available, it worked out really nice, was this project called Who's on Third? And it's a bicycle boulevard treatment through our downtown. And a bicycle boulevard is basically how can we slow down cars along this existing street to make it safer for bicyclists to be able to walk and ride their bikes along this corridor. So that's where the concept came from. The community came up with this concept. The pitch funding just happened to be available right at the right time. And so we were able to implement this project in phases through the pitch funding. If you guys don't know, the pitch funding was a 3-year program, but each year we got a pot of money that was available. And you had to spend it within that year. And if you didn't, then you lost it. Or if you happen to get an extension, I think we got an extension in year 1 because they were slow. So we had to try and look at how can we chunk out a project so that at the end of the 3 years we have a consistent project that is throughout the area. So we've kind of chunked it out. So this was the concept: markings on the ground, a traffic circle at one of the intersections, some pedestrian crossing treatments. This was all part of that concept. So how can we implement this? And we use the pitch funds to do it. Here's a crew coming out and painting in year 1, painting the green markings. They actually just section it off and roller the paint onto the ground. At my booth, at my table at the back, I have some samples of what that paint actually feels like. It sits up above the ground about that much, and it's textured, so it grabs your tires and makes it easy to ride on. It's kind of cool. That's what it looks like when they're finished. Notice the sign up there that says may use full lane. That's the sign that goes with the show. So this is what we did in year 1. We just barely had enough time to finish these before our year 2 and our year 1 extension began. In year 2 and our year 1 extension, we put in the circle at the intersection. So tough situation. Our public works department was actually going to be replacing a water line along this cross street. And we had plans to build a full landscaped circle at this intersection. But our public works department said, hey, by the way, we're going to be ripping up the street there. If you guys put in that circle, we're going to rip out the circle in order to replace our water line. So we put in this temporary treatment instead with the pitch funds because we had a deadline. We had to implement the project as the pitch fund said. It worked out nice because some of the other treatments ended up costing more money, so this saved us money, and we still end up spending more money. But these are some of the landscape meetings that we put in. These help to reinforce the crosswalk that you see there. Provides a place where pedestrians, that if they needed to stop halfway in the crosswalk, they could. It also breaks up the openness of the street. If you're looking down a street and it feels like a freeway, you're going to drive on it like it's a freeway. So when you break up the middle of the street and you put things in the middle, it makes it so people go, oh, what's that? I got to slow down. I don't know what that is. Another crosswalk. That crosswalk wasn't there. There's a park on the right side. And there's a parking lot structure on the other side. And we never had a crosswalk there before. But now, with the meeting in place, my engineering staff felt comfortable installing a crosswalk at that location because they felt it was safe enough to cross there. We put in bike racks. Oh my God. You give them a place to park and they will use them. Before this, we would have bikes parked to the poles, to the chairs, to the trash cans. I take pictures when I'm walking around our downtown before we put in the bike racks of every time I see a bike that's locked to something that it shouldn't be locked to. I got a ton of pictures of that. I should have brought them. This is our year 3. Looks like an engineering design, right? That's kind of nauseous. Can you tell what that is? We're installing bike lanes along a street. There's a bike path that comes just shy of our downtown. And with our year 3 funds, we're going to paint an on-street bike lane to connect where the path currently ends, connected to where that circle is in the middle of our downtown. So that way we have now a recreational trail that's connected to our downtown for people to be able to get to. And we're going to finish it just on time, I promise. So that's what it'll look like. It'll be more of the green paint, green back bike lane. We're doing a lot of these in Santa Ana, and it just kind of raises the awareness for motorists that are driving, like, hey, that's a bike lane, that's not someplace for me to park. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. That's it.
Good morning. I'm Barry Ross, and I'm chair of the Alliance for Healthy Orange County. And my day job is I'm vice president of Healthy Communities at St. Jude Medical Center in Fullerton. Just about the Alliance briefly, we are a countywide group that is focusing on policy, system, and environmental change to improve health in Orange County. We have had a focus on active transportation and our Move More Eat Healthy campaign. So the approaches we use for the PICH grant are these, and I'm going to focus a lot on our policy change. So we're not going to have a lot of pretty pictures like the others, but the important thing is that to get the work done, we have to influence policy. And I think you see the champions in the cities here and the school districts, but the fact is that in most of our cities in Orange County, health is not their priority. There are other priorities, and so our role with AHOC is to make health a higher priority for local governments, for local school districts. So one way we do that is through education. We were funded primarily to hire a full-time policy analyst, and she is an MPH student at UCI who will be graduating this semester. So we focused on educating city council members, for example. Some of them are champions for this work, and some of them we needed to explain why this work is important. Community members and also city staff. Again, there are maybe champions within the city, but as you heard from some of the other projects, it takes many different departments in a city to get a project done, and some of those departments don't always see health as a priority. We also did a lot of promotion, and you've heard that from some of the other speakers. How do we make this visible to our communities and to our policymakers? So these are some of the ways that we promoted and communicated. We also provided a lot of letters of support for some of the grants that the cities were looking for to improve their infrastructure. So this is what we did in terms of our events and programs. I just want to point out a few things. In year 1, we had a very successful breakfast at Northgate corporate headquarters where we invited city council members and policy makers, staff, to really learn from each other and to hopefully bring back some of the best practices that other cities were doing to their own city. In year 2, we had a very successful active transportation forum where we brought in probably 200 people to learn about what's going on around in the country from real experts around active transportation. We also did our first, what we called an active transportation leadership program, where we train residents, we also trained youth, to advocate for what was important in their own communities for active transportation. Because even if you have a champion on the city council or in the staff, they need residents to speak up and say this work is important. And in year 3, you can see a lot of the work that we did and some of the tools that we developed will have at the table. These are some of the events that we were involved with, the bike rodeo and the trail walk audit. It's really important to get the community involved in seeing what is working in their local neighborhoods and what needs to be improved so that they can represent that to the decision makers. So again, our focus was on policy change, and from a long-term sustainability perspective, as these get implemented, we hope that will drive policy in the future in these cities. So Santa Ana is the first city in Orange County to have a Vision Zero plan. And AHOC's executive director is on the city council in Santa Ana, Michelle Martinez, and she was a real champion for the Vision Zero plan, which is how do we bring bicycle and pedestrian injuries and deaths to zero in a city. And Santa Ana has a model plan right now. We're working with the cities of Anaheim and Garden Grove on a bicycle master plan. What that will do is give them a blueprint to where they want to put bike lanes, make it more pedestrian friendly for their city. And then that gives them an opportunity to seek funding for that. We worked on tap water policies, and then also there's a League of Cities Healthy Eating, Active Living program, which encourages cities to pass policies at 3 different levels, eager, active, and fit. And all of our cities are participating in the PITCH program, in this program. And Santa Ana is a fit city, for example, which is the highest designation. We wanted to look at how do we address equity and health disparities. One of the things we looked at is most people in the cities don't understand how cities budget for capital. These projects that you saw, the parks projects, the streets projects, they are capital, meaning it takes their infrastructure. And so cities budget for that every year. These kind of projects often are not in the budget. So how do we educate the community about this process? Because in many cities, it's kind of not as transparent as it should be. Educating community members to work together and teaching them how to present at city council meetings. And so for sustainability, these are the ways we look to sustain the work we're doing. We are participating in a county-wide Orange County Health Improvement Partnership. There is an obesity work group, and 2 of the cities that are priorities for that are Anaheim and Santa Ana, so that work will continue there. We're going to continue to see how we can also work within Garden Grove because of all the people that have been trained through the leadership programs. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Megan Beard, and I'm with the Orange County Healthcare Agency as Safe Routes to School Coordinator. I'm really excited to share with you guys some of the outcomes in or at school sites within the PITCH cities. And I know Mo wanted me to focus on that portion of the presentation, but I think it'll be imperative to understand our process and program. So I'll try to breeze through the first several slides and then get to some of the exciting outcomes. So for those of you who are not familiar, Safe Routes to School is a program that seeks to create fun and safe opportunities for students to walk and bike to school. We know that walking and biking to and from school is one of the easiest ways to increase daily physical activity and, along with eating healthy, maintain a healthy weight. One of the first things that we do when we recruit a site is we administer a walkability checklist. This might look familiar to a lot of you. It's a commonly used walk audit tool, and this helps us sort of establish our baseline, gather information about walking rates, as well as generates a walking score for the community. From there, we identify a core group of students, typically like a leadership group at the school or ASB, And we train them to go out and conduct a walk audit. So I will show you some photos from walk audits. We equip them with clipboards, pens, pencils, cameras. We pre-identify the 3 most commonly traveled routes to school, looking at density maps, as well as asking the students, where do you come, how do you navigate when you're walking to and from school. We try to engage law enforcement in this process, or city staff, so that they can see what we're doing all along the way. And so here are some photos from very recent walk audits. We've got Santa Ana High School, and Olive Street Elementary just took place a couple weeks ago. So after we conduct the walk audit, we work with the youth to prioritize the issues. So, at this point, they've taken pictures of all of the issues, and so we try to get it down to maybe 7 to 10 issues that they felt most strongly about. And then we work with them to get ready to prepare a presentation to the city. So here's some photos from student presentations: A.J. Cook Elementary School in Garden Grove, Anaheim High School, Benjamin Franklin Elementary in Anaheim. And as you can see, they take place in sort of different formats. Sometimes we're in a big school assembly hall, other times we're in a classroom. We've gone to City Hall to present. And now, so some of the outcomes that have come from these presentations are here, for example, if you look up at the top left corner, your left, you can see a lot of jaywalking happening here. The crosswalk for this school used to be a block and a half, I guess, east, and that's where their crossing guard was. But as you can see from the photo, parents and students were crossing the street on Jan Street. So one of the things they wanted to see from their presentation was relocation of this crosswalk. So if you look at the photo here, they moved it a block and a half west, and now their crossing guard is actually crossing students there. So here we go, Anaheim High School. They actually didn't have a crosswalk, period. And the dismissal, if you look at this bottom picture, dismissal, the gate is right there. So students were just crossing the street when they'd get out of school. So a big thing that they wanted to see was a stop sign there. Also, speeds along Citron Street were really high. There's a long portion of the street with no sort of speed controlling measures. So they implemented this stop sign and added crosswalks here. Some other, like excessive trash, we did a trash cleanup. You can see top right, announcing implementation of an actual controlled intersection or a signal. And then down here, curbs being painted red to enhance visibility of the crosswalk. So prior to those curbs being painted red, cars would park all along the street, shielding visibility of the kids using that crosswalk. So by painting the curbs red, now cars can't park there, and it enhances driver visibility. Another stop sign and crosswalk installation that came about. Sometimes it's as simple as clearing sidewalks. So in this case, trees were sort of impeding their walk, and I guess the bushes were thorny. So a really simple fix from the city was coming out and trimming those. So ultimately, the walk audit and advocating for those changes, enhancing the environment is the first thing we want to do, just so that we can promote what we're trying to do, which is encouraging walking and biking to and from school. And one of the things we do once the environment has been enhanced is we help schools start walking school bus programs. And because of support from OC PICH, we were able to get these awesome walking school bus banners, which I have back at the table, and the kids are so excited about that. So that's kind of what we rolled out last year was using these yellow school bus banners. And then what I think is so cool, this event just took place last week at Olive Street in Anaheim. We ordered white school bus banners, and then Pitch helped us purchase these vinyl banner markers. And last week we launched our Battle of the Banners contest. So the kids are actually designing their own walking school bus banners, and it just kind of gives them some, it's just a fun way to get them engaged and feel some ownership in their program. Oh, and so just to wrap up, the benefits of engaging youth in the process, I just wanted to highlight, I think it encourages and empowers youth to be agents of change. It teaches them about active transportation. You know, they're bicyclists and they're pedestrians now, but they're gonna be drivers in a few years. And I think sort of talking about these things and helping them look at the environment from this perspective will make them better drivers. And we often find that driver behavior is a big issue, so starting them young and getting them used to hearing these things has been really positive. It also promotes good relationships with city staff and increases daily physical activity.
Okay, so just really quick, as our partners have presented about active transportation and the things they're doing in their different cities and regions, SSG conducted some, along with UCI, conducted some evaluations of both the parks and in downtown Santa Ana, as Corey was talking about, with putting in shared bike lanes. And so just some really quick information from some of the preliminary analysis that we saw through SSG is that a lot of folks did feel unsafe as they were riding through downtown Santa Ana. So it's important to have things like shared bike lanes or even dedicated bike lanes, which a lot of folks did ask for in the survey. It was something that we did ask about. And so dedicated bike lanes, shared bike lanes was definitely something that was mentioned by a lot of folks. A lot of folks also talked about having active transportation infrastructure. So having things like, where can I put my bike? Where can I lock it safely? Those were a lot of important things as well. So with that, I can let Mo talk a little bit about some of her data.
Thanks, Art. So one of the most interesting things that we found when we were collecting data in Santa Ana for the Sharrows was that there's not a lot of evidence base. There's a lot of speculation and hypotheses and kind of feelings when you're on a Sharrow that you don't feel safe on a Sharrow, a shared road, which technically all roads are shared. And because we wanted to capture some evidence pre-Sharrow and post-Sharrow before Corey went in and did all the other traffic calming techniques and putting up all those bike racks and markers on the road, we wanted to see if we could capture a little bit of the impact of just the Sharrow. What would it be like? What is the data telling us? And as Art mentioned, SSG did surveys, so they had more of a feel for how people were interacting with the Sharrow, whereas our observations were strictly observational. We didn't interact with people, although they interacted with us on numerous occasions to give us an earful of what they thought about economic development in Santa Ana. And we realized this is really important. We have to take into consideration how all these things fit together. But here's the result of our evidence. Our evidence showed post-intervention of the Sharrow, which again, we're just looking at those green paintings and the signs that say bikes may use full lane. There was a slight increase in biking, but we also noted more people were riding the wrong way and on the sidewalks. None of this was statistically significant, so it's just a temperature reading. So we had to go back to the evidence. We had to go back to the literature to say, why is this happening? And we noted that the literature talks about perceptions of safety. And guess what they recommended? Traffic calming techniques. Corey, check. They also talked about creating spaces with greenery, with changing the aesthetics to have people slow down. Why do you think a roundabout or those barriers on the road, why do you think they slow down traffic? Any ideas? Because people get confused, right? People get confused and they slow down because they don't know what to do, and it makes them safer. As Corey mentioned, if you just leave an open space, people will go speed through it, right? So that's one of the things that we noticed. So our data showed that although Sharrows people are not that comfortable with, the limitation of our study was that we only did this very quickly after the Sharrows were put into place. So something else that Corey and I have talked about on numerous occasions is that we don't do these projects in isolation. Success happens because of the engagement of the community. So when Corey came in, he was able to push things through because Latino Health Access, Santa Ana Active Streets, KidWorks had been doing a lot of that groundwork. So when Jennifer talked about in Garden Grove, it was really hard to get closed-minded people to think open streets. It works the same way. We can't do this without communities' involvement and constantly voicing to their city council, to their institutions and agencies that this matters, that we need to make sure that there is equity in place. And because this topic was mentioned, I just wanted to highlight equity means different things to different people. It's not just about the redistribution of resources. There's also equity in uses of the road. So for example, the first Open Streets event had skateboarders with the other bikers. In the third one, the last one that just occurred in Garden Grove, there was actually a pop-up skate park. Reimagine the connections between all the rollers. So how do we think about not just resource distribution, but thinking about equity broadly and understanding there's equity of uses on the road. There's also equity of park space. So as Corey mentioned, Santa Ana is park poor. Garden Grove is not park poor, except that it's concentrated in the west side. What about the east side? I've talked to city council members in Garden Grove that say the east side of Garden Grove is very park poor. So how do we ensure equity of those parks and spaces? Those are things that are coming out from our evaluation and communication with our wonderful partners. As I transition from this equity and community to nutrition, we only have one panelist here, but let me tell you, she's a powerhouse. And the reason why this is really important to think about these connections, because OC PICH wasn't just about increasing physical activity, it was also about increasing access to healthy food and nutrition, as well as increasing our water intake. We don't have a panelist today to talk about that, but just keep that in mind, that this project was involving every aspect of health that you can imagine can be helped and improved by access to resources and partnerships. So nutrition, food, and I have a lot of students here. We do a project in my class on food justice. We have actually an oral history project where we do interviews around food with our elders. Food connects communities. It connects us to each other. You want to bike to a restaurant and eat tacos. That's something really important. So how do we connect food to health and active living is going to be our next speaker. So help me again, give them a motivational round of applause.
Good morning, I'm Christina Hall. I'm with the Orange County Food Access Coalition. How many of you eat? I don't see everyone's hands. We've got some issues here. So eating connects all of us. Everybody eats. And the Orange County Food Access Coalition is the Food Policy Council for Orange County. And we definitely see that we are a catalyst to support and expand access to healthy and nutritious food. But when we do that, we're working with the most nutritionally vulnerable communities in our daily lives here at OCFAC. But when you change the food system for one group of people, it changes it for everyone, and it makes it equitable, it makes it easier to access, and it makes it stronger and more resilient. And so that's kind of where we come from when we're doing this work. Like Barry talked about, policy, advocacy, that piece is really, really important because we have to get these items put into policy so that they'll become part of daily life and really be, it's part of what we see in our communities and that fabric of those communities. So we do that policy work, but we also do programmatic and community work. So all of these different types of activities are really important in making change happen. I'm sitting up here speaking, but I couldn't do this without the work of my collaborative partners here at the table and some of those that aren't here in the room today, but also my fabulous team, which is over here. So come see us after. We have a table here in the back, and we'd love to talk to you more about these things. Our focus areas for the PITCH grant really were a range of topics. So talking about urban agriculture, what is community gardening, backyard gardening, container gardening? How do we get people more into the food system by gardening? How do we change school wellness policies, which are required by the USDA, but how do we make them stronger? And CalFresh usage at farmers markets. We have these amazing local farmers, and most of our farmers markets do take CalFresh, which if you aren't familiar with CalFresh, that's what would be known as the food stamp program. And how do we get residents engaged in going to a farmer's market? How do we utilize farm to school programming? So farm to school for the Orange County Food Access and for Orange County's Farm to School Task Force really relates to 3 different areas. It's about local procurement, which is great. We want to support our local farms and artisans and folks like that, but it doesn't really matter if no one's eating the food at the schools, right? If the kids aren't eating it, it doesn't really matter where it's coming from. So we really focus highly on that consumption piece. And tied to consumption is food literacy. If you've never had a snap pea, you're not gonna know what to do with it. You're not gonna know, do I peel it? Do I break it in half? Do I pop out those seeds? Like food literacy, that it's different than nutrition education. Nutrition education is very, very important, but understanding food and trying new things is really vital in that. And so the last piece that we worked on, like AHawk, was tap water policies. We are very lucky in Orange County to have water that comes out of our faucets, for one, and for two, it's drinkable. And we have a lot of community members that come into Orange County from places more local or international, that don't have that access and are used to buying water. And when you buy water, not only are you being charged so much money for it, and it's not tested the same way as your local water source, but you're utilizing money that you could be using on food. So getting that word out there about our clean and fabulous tap water in these 3 communities was really, really important. And so what I want to focus on is a lot of our big outcomes. We have lots of outcomes still pending, but one of the things that we focused on here in this PowerPoint are some of the things that have already happened. So there's a program called Market Match. Market Match was awarded, we were able to get it awarded to the downtown Santa Ana Farmers Market and the downtown Anaheim Farmers Market. And if you're not familiar with Market Match is a federal program. You might have heard it called Double Up Bucks. That it has a different name in different places, but it's really matching your CalFresh money at a farmer's market. And so the Anaheim Farmers Market matches up to $10. So if you spend $10 with your CalFresh card, you can get a matching $10, and now you have $20 to spend at the farmer's market. And that match is working, it allows you to purchase extra fruits and vegetables. The Santa Ana Farmers Market, we have created the ability for them to match at the $15 level. So if you spend $15, you'll have $30 to spend at the farmer's market. And you can do that every week. This is a weekly program. There's no real limit on that. And there's no limit. You could go to the Anaheim Farmers Market on Thursday and then come to the Santa Ana Farmers Market on Sunday. And starting from a sustainability perspective with non-pitch funds, we were able to get the Orange Farmers Market signed on, and they'll be starting in July. So you could go there on Saturday and match at $10. So, you know, really getting people into healthy fruits and vegetables that really taste good because they're locally grown. The second thing we worked on, like I said, we worked on wellness policies. So wellness policies are required by the USDA for schools that receive federal funds. And it's supposed to incorporate policies that make students healthier, making that, that environment at the school healthier. And so we've been a big proponent. You can have a weak wellness policy. You can say, oh, we have this wellness policy, we want our kids to be well, they get food, whatever. And you can make it really weak. But one of our focus areas is to make it very strong wellness policies, make strong language that says, we will do this, not we might get around to it someday. And, you know, our partners at the school districts have been really working hard on this. Santa Ana, I have to shout out Santa Ana Unified because they're working on a really strong policy. And I think they saw what some vague language, the consequences of that. Because the first year we did it, there was a few places that had some vague language. And then people got phone calls, like, I don't know what this means. Can I do this? Can I do that? And you get more and more and more phone calls because it's vague. And this past year, not only have we been putting in stronger language, but we're putting in criteria for evaluation. We're talking about what are consequences. What if we don't follow the policy, then what? Wellness policies really can change what our students are interacting with at the school level. We worked with John. John's over here. John's this fabulous designer. So there's a school-based program called Harvest of the Month, and it ties into that food literacy and nutrition education piece. Let's try a new food. Let's taste it. Let's talk about it. It's kind of cool. But this is a school-based program, and we wanted to make sure that it got out of the schools. And we have these amazing farmers market programs that we've put together. So how do we tie Harvest of the Month into the farmers markets, into that retail space where kids can go, hey mom, I see this poster here at the farmers market. It's talking about strawberries. That's the Harvest of the Month. We did that in school. Getting that connection between parents and kids and what's going on. Because if any of you have kids or are related to little kids and you ask them, how was your day at school? They're like, it was okay. It was good. They don't necessarily share, but when they come to the farmer's market and see this poster about Harvest of the Month, then they go, hey, we did that. And it really brings that interaction. It brings interaction with the local farmers. It really ties all of this work together. And we have some of those posters in the back. I think one of the bigger things for me was the passage of AB 551. That really, it was a state law that was passed that allowed communities to create what's called an urban agriculture incentive zone. But it was a really convoluted process. So in creation of urban agriculture incentive zones, it was supposed to be able to have private landowners be able to lease their land, give their land to urban farmers for no less than a minimum of 5 years, and in return, those property owners would get a tax break on their property taxes. So this was super cool. The actual implementation statewide has not been as expected. A lot of landowners don't want to commit their vacant property for 5 years, and a lot of counties and or cities are really concerned about the revenue loss. And really, when we got the county assessor's office to really look at it and dig into the numbers, they're like, oh, well, it's really not that much. A property that doesn't have, like a piece of land that doesn't have a structure on it doesn't bring in that much property tax in the first place. So, okay, we're on board. And so the Board of Supervisors approved this, I want to say 2 months ago. I don't think I put the date on. It's been 2 months. And now we're talking to cities. So we're drawing up the maps for the cities. And that's like, so first a city has to do it or a county has to do it. And a county has to approve it if a city starts the process. So we've gotten the county on board. So that's the biggest hurdle in the process. We need to now get the cities to designate those zones in their communities. And then we need to get landowners and farmers connected to be able to utilize that process. So it's a long process, but it's going through, and we're really, really excited about that one. We have that farm to school movement, and we did a report on farm to school and found we worked with our farm to school task force and with school food service directors at our school districts in Orange County. And I have to say, I was really excited to find out that we have now local procurement taking place at all 9 school districts in the pitch cities. And I'm also happy to say, on top of that, 100% of our school districts in Orange County are doing some kind of farm to school activity. So we rock it here in Orange County from a farm to school perspective. we created an urban agriculture work group to help community gardens, school gardens, micro farms, and other growing spaces. They come together, they talk with one another, they share resources, soil, compost, people, seeds, and we've had some events with them as well. And we're getting ready to do a extreme weather event this summer with the Urban Agriculture Work Group. Our Urban Agriculture Work Group pulled through for the latest Open Streets event in Garden Grove. There was a parklet there, and we were able to put all these beautiful plants in it and show people just how amazing, like maybe you don't have a park in your neighborhood, but we can make a shady, green, beautiful space for you. We've done multiple community events related to food and wellness. We have built strong relationships with city staff, and this is going to help sustain that pitch work. Like we said, these are collaborations that are going to be working from, it's been 3 years, but they're going to be ongoing and keep working. We developed an urban ag guide. We called it the Beginner's Guide to Suburban Agriculture. Maybe you want to start a garden, but you don't know how. Maybe you have a garden and you have something going on with your soil and you don't know what to do with it. So we created this guide. It's in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. We have some in the back. It's also online. So come by and see that. We also have we've developed and strengthened over the past 3 years a community member engagement program. And it's around food systems, it's around policy, it's around advocacy, it's getting people in the community to go talk to their decision makers, whether at the state, local, or federal level, school board level, city council members. All of these different kinds of levels are really important to changing the food system and, like we heard, the active transportation as well. I want to show you some of the pictures that we have from some of our events. So this was the launch of the Urban Ag Guide. We had a panel of speakers. We had a basic speaker. So what if I have never gardened before and I'm really scared of dirt, and what do I do? How do I start this? And the panel ranged through a local micro farm that could talk about how they got into selling at a farmer's market. We had the Orange County Ag Commissioner's office there to talk about what that inspection process looks like. And we even had someone there to talk about agricultural lending. I have a micro farm and I'm ready to go to the next step. What do I do? So it was a really full spectrum panel. Worms. Like, you can't have a garden without worms. That's just all there is to it. And we love our worms, and our kids love worms. And so we had a local food event, and we brought out our urban agriculturalists, we brought out some local chefs, we brought out some farms, and we had the bicycle blender, thanks to K-Pop. We used their bicycle blender, and I don't even know where the carrot costume came from, but it was pretty amazing. Are there worms in there? There's no worms in there. We don't want to blend the worms, we need them for our soil, so no worms in the blender. And then this is a picture of the staff at the downtown Santa Ana Farmers Market, along with the grant funder that funds the Market Match program. She's in the middle. Her name's Carly Brinkman, and she's at the Ecology Center up north in Berkeley. This is, we had our Farm to School Task Force meeting, and we were talking about LCAP funding, which is a whole nother presentation in and of itself, but it's a funding mechanism in our school districts, and how that funding can be utilized for healthy foods, healthy active transportation projects, different kinds of things that a school district needs. You can check out our website. We have stuff in the back, and we are on social media, so thank you.
All right, thank you, Christina, for that great presentation. With that, we're going to go ahead and go into the evaluation of the collaboration of the OC PICH partnership, and it's specifically around those partners that were doing active transportation. So as a reminder, SSG, Research and Evaluation, was really looking at the active transportation strategy of OC PICH. And so with that, I'll allow Leela from SSG R&E to go ahead and take that away.
Good morning. My name is Leila Burgos. I'm one of the senior analysts at SSG, and I first have a set of thank yous. I want to thank Dr. Mo Sammy, who is amazing, and UC Irvine for inviting us to be a part of this seminar. I want to also thank KPOC for leading this effort and bringing all the different stakeholders together, and the cities of Anaheim, Garden Grove, and Santa Ana for being part of the collaborative, and then of course the CDC, the Division of Community Health, whose financial support made all of this possible. So before we, really dive into, how in the world did we evaluate this entire thing, it's probably good to kind of ground in really understanding, the importance and significance of everybody at this panel and all of the work that's been done. So is there anyone here, I'm curious, that lives, works, plays, studies in the exact same zip code? You don't leave your zip code? 2 people. Very good. Very good. I need that life. So the thing is that, for the majority of us, right, none of us really, we are constantly living the zip codes, the cities. Think of the urban form, the built environment of Orange County. You cross the street, you're in a different city. You go to your school, you could be in a different zip code, a different city. For some people, they even commute to different counties in Southern California. And one of the things that's really important, something that Barry said, is that at the end of it, cities themselves fund, right, some of these active transit interventions. And the thing is that because a city can be different once you cross the street, when you're looking at things like the reasons we're doing this in the first place, right, obesity, the social benefits of walking, biking, all of these things, you don't just stay in your own zip code. You don't just stay in your own city. There needs to be a network, right? But again, once Garden Grove can't, build something in Santa Ana, right, or vice versa, so there needs to be network, there needs to be collaboration, there needs to be cities, agencies, community members, people working together to make these interventions happen. And that's why, part of our work in evaluating this entire effort was not just looking at the interventions themselves, right? What happened with the parks, what happened, with the community members that started visiting them before the intervention, after the intervention, or before, the Santa Ana interventions of the Sharrows, or, what happened there. But how did people work together? How did these cities, how did these community partners, what were they, what was the quality of the relationships they had with each other? Did they form new partnerships because of OC PICH? What were the relationships like that they maintained with each other over the 3-year period? And, has the quality of those relationships changed over time and hopefully led to something that will sustain and continue on even after this initiative? To do that, we did everything from, I think we did 6 different interviews, before the intervention, during the first year, during the second year. We also did focus groups, right, with all the different types of stakeholders that were involved in this. And we asked them a variety of questions on the relationships. And we also did surveys as well, right? And more or less, we really want to know, how do these 3 cities work together? How do the partners work together to provide a regional active transit network? And we also were curious, are there policies being developed, changed, or implemented that support active transit and physical activity as a result of this? So one of the things we found a lot of different things. I'm going to try to summarize it and keep it very simple, because I know that you've been talked to for a little while this morning. There's been a lot of different active transit programs that have been implemented or are in the process. So this is a real shout out to all the different partners we have. We have the Santa Ana Vision Zero Plan, the Garden Grove Bike and Pedestrian Master Plan and Active Streets Plan. The Anaheim street improvements have been amazing, and Safe Routes to School, right? These are just a sampling of the different the Go Human campaign. These are a sampling of the different policies that have come out of this collaborative. And it's really exciting because those things will change the urban form and will create new opportunities for community members to engage in active transit. Some other major themes we've come across, right? What has happened as a result of these, of the relationships happening, of what's happened in the community. We know that there's been an increased, enthusiasm and awareness, right, about the concept of what active transportation is and its connection to health. There's really been kind of a shifting paradigm of responsibility. That's one of the things we've found. We've also noticed that there's been a growing community engagement, right? Even on this panel, we have, we don't just have government agencies, we have nonprofit agencies, we have community-based agencies. There have been, community advocacy and organizing agencies that have taken incredible steps to make sure that there has been, buy-in from community members, and that City Hall and that elected officials and that the agencies themselves realize how much community members want these changes in their community. Then there's also, we asked a little bit about what is collaboration, right? In implementing active transit intervention and policies. What does that really mean? We know that from all of the results, from all the interviews we did, from the surveys we did, there's kind of 4 big themes that came up, right? How all of these different organizations, cities, officials, agencies, community partners, how did they problem solve? How did they share resources? How did they share information? And how did they make decisions? So one of the things we found, and I'll just kind of briefly define each one, right? Even though they kind of seem related to each other, right? And they're all a part of collaborating. But with problem solving is, again, it can be very complicated to not just develop a policy, but to also implement it, right? Especially when you have to have, Department of Public Works and Building and Safety and all these different agencies, again, within a city working together. And then how do you relate to the community? And then how do you relate to the neighboring city or the region? And then how do you get the money for it, right? So really problem solving was how all these different groups, how all these different actors came together to solve issues when they would arise, right? Even if you think about this on a personal level, right? Think about the difference when even, you as a student had a problem. Did you try to figure it out by yourself, or did you have an easier time when you went to your teacher or just some of your classmates to figure out how do we solve this, right? So again, there's another kind of element of shared resources and collaboration. And when we talk about sharing resources, we specifically mean really funding resources, right? Like information about where to get the money to implement these kind of interventions, and not just for OC PICH, but for everything in the future, or where are the different pools of funding and where are the different community members that can help make that happen. Also with shared information, it's along that same line, right? It's networks, right? So we think about our network of friends or our clique of friends, or what you find out from Facebook about events happening in your area or what your friends are doing, right? Like it's information that's passed along. And then also with decision making, right? There are multiple, there's multiple levels of decision making that have to happen in order for these policies to be implemented, in order for them to be developed. So how does that really work? I can give you kind of an example just from some of our interviews. We had some regional partners like OCTA and OC Public Works, as well as local school districts that were named most frequently, right, by OC PICH active transportation partners. And it's a really good sign, because it means that, collaboration is really healthy, and it's beginning within and across jurisdictions and across multiple sectors. Also, with problem solving and resources, we had one participant in one of our interviews talk about how there were some political difficulties with expanding and developing an active transit regional network, right? And the consensus was, just among many of the different partners, that it really needed to be a collaborative effort. They need to see community members, they need to see community-based agencies, government agencies themselves. We've heard this word champion. What does a champion mean? It means somebody within an agency that's really going forward, that's really saying, hey, we're gonna do this. It's that person in your group of friends that's like, no, we're gonna go out, or we're going to this restaurant. So it's that person that's very passionate about it and that really pushes it and makes sure it's on people's agendas. And then we also have, again, kind of those different folks that need to be pulled along too, like elected officials. They need to be pulled in, they need to be convinced, all right, this is maybe worth it. You need businesses to be in on. There's so many different people you need to be involved. So really there's been a very collaborative effort between different officials within cities, across cities, and really there's what we could, I think, define as really an intentional effort to almost organize and develop buy-in across elected officials. There's also an intentional effort to push cities to collaborate to apply for active transit-related funding and projects with each other and for each other, moving on towards the future. So that's just kind of one of the examples of kind of problem solving and just how sharing resources works within this group. Looking ahead, right, and again, kind of based on what we have found, we know that collaboration is happening across jurisdictions, and collaboration is going to be needed further. It's going to need to be fostered further to have a far-reaching impact. So one of the realities of collaboration is that it doesn't just happen. It can happen that you just like how you might meet a friend randomly, in a different kind of relaxed space. When you're talking about city agencies and different partners working together, they need to be able to have this space, right? And the reality is that time is money. So they need to have a space to collaborate, right? And so that needs to continue to happen if we want to see a regional active transit network. Part of what OC PICH was about was creating that space and creating that funding so there was a space to collaborate, right? So people could take a break from the programs and the projects and the policies that they were working on to do this together. Right? So there needs to continue to be that incentive. Political will and competing priorities are going to remain barriers to implementing active transit changes. So again, that organizing, right, and that push from champions from within and from outside to make sure that this continues to be a priority. We also know that physical spaces take time, right? Physical changes in the built environment take time. For those of you familiar with city processes, hopefully you will become familiar. I know many of you are policy and urban planning students. From the time that a policy is implemented or passed, to getting all of the permitting, to getting the bids out for who's going to do the construction for something, that takes time. And sometimes with funding, they'll say, oh, we need this done within a certain period of time. But the reality is that it might take longer. Right, so it's understanding for funders, right, and those who want to fund these interventions that things there's going to be delays. Democracy is complicated. There's public processes, there's open comment, there's public, commenting, things like that. So it's really just understanding for the funders that that's going to be a reality. We also know that OC PICH stakeholders really are seeking long-term funding to continue creating active transit policy, active transit regional networks. And that really evidence has also developed through the implementation of small-scale changes in the built environment. Everything that we talked about with Santa Ana, which was really exciting and interesting. So I'll just kind of close out with saying a little bit about what our team does. So we are SSG Research and Evaluation. We, I think, have some handouts about what we do, but really what we try to do, very simple form, is help determine what was the impact of a project, or did it work? How did it work? So really kind of basically that's what evaluation is about. And we work with community organizations, public sector agencies. We look at things like collaboration, or sometimes we look at things just on what was the return of investment or what was the social impact of a project. And then before we end, I also want to talk a little bit about what our recommendations were. So both SSG, Research and Evaluation, and UCI recommend that the networks and the relationships established and strengthened by OC PICH continue in some form to increase the impact of all of the great work that's been done over the past 2.5 years. It's because of all of the networking and the efforts that have been taking place behind the scenes that policies have been adopted, translated to changes in the physical space, and we now have projects that have been implemented across all 3 communities, and those have lasting effects, right, in changing people's behaviors, which impacts people's health, it impacts society, it impacts their mindset, and it will ultimately impact chronic disease. So I think at this point we are going to finish up, and I think we're going to go hopefully into Q&A and final remarks by Mo.
So we heard a lot of great folks up here doing a lot of awesome work throughout Orange County. We have those that are working at different school sites, throughout school districts, and all of the different parks within Anaheim, Garden Grove, Santa Ana. We have a lot of folks working on some active street, active transportation types of projects. those who are doing more systematic types of changes, being able to influence policy, safe routes to school, and then nutrition programs, really connecting people to the food that they eat and those systems that we all live and work in. And then some great information about the collaborations and networking that's happening within OC PICH and across the region. So with that, we can go ahead and start taking a few questions. If anybody has anything, if you can raise your hand, we'll call on you. Okay, yeah, here, I'll hand the mic to you so that way people can hear.
I noticed a common thread that hasn't been discussed among you guys, but for example, with the connecting health and nutrition, if you have urban agriculture, if you grow food, not lawns, you're saving water. With active transportation, you're reducing greenhouse gas emissions by getting more cars off the road. And with the activity and getting people physical, that requires green space and outdoor space. And I see that there's an environmental sustainability component that has been discussed very much. And I'm curious to see where you see that marriage of healthy communities and healthy living between that and environmental sustainability, if there is such a marriage, or if that is something that's going to occur.
So what you're talking about is co-benefits, right? When it comes to all of the things that we worked on, obviously the funding was focused on public health, community health, but there are a ton of benefits for why we do the type of work that we're doing, whether it's active transportation projects, whether it's health and exercise at schools, whether it's walking to schools. They all kind of intermesh and it gets messy real quick. And so a lot of what we're talking about obviously has been related to the type of funding that we went after. But like, I just applied for a grant application for another infrastructure project that will connect to what we're doing here and extend it. And it's urban greening grant fund. So it was talking about greenhouse gas reductions and connectivity to parks and sequestering carbon and I don't care what kind of funding it is. I'm trying to put projects out on the ground. So whatever tools we have to do in order to try and address those things, we recognize that there's a lot of co-benefits to what it is that we're doing. So yeah.
And I want to add to that. I think you're right. It has to do with the kind of funding, and that's what we're reporting out on. My background actually is in urban sustainability and biology, and it really, you see, when you have gardening, you have healthy soil. Healthy soil sequesters carbon more. We know we need to do more with water reduction, and not only can that healthy soil trap the carbon, but it can also help store water in a different way. And so all of these projects, between personal health, really do change the community, like the environmental health around us, and that's what helps keep it going. I really think sustainability, like environmental sustainability, is the base underneath all of these projects.
I think you raise a really good point, and one of the things we have not yet been successful at doing here from a policy perspective for advocacy is bringing the environmental justice groups in with the health groups and the active transportation groups at the table together. I think we could be more powerful that way. We just haven't gotten all those connections in place, so that's something we need to work on.
Any other questions out in the audience?
I guess I'd like to ask the group, if you were to apply for the 3-year pitch grant today, what would you do differently for a new round or the next?
I don't know if we would, I think we would have many of the same partners. I mean, we're very deliberate about making sure that each of the cities was a partner, that we weren't going to work in a municipality without having a municipality actually contracted with us, because that changes sort of the partnership and their commitment to it. We were opportunistic in who else was doing work and was active in doing that work. I think policy always is a struggle because it doesn't, and infrastructure is a struggle because of the time frame. I like that we took those on. I'm okay that we didn't complete everything because the federal government needs to know how long it takes, not just to implement policy, but I mean, not to just make policy, but to implement it. So I think we move CDC forward. We still, the difference between what's needed and what's they call beautification. That was a really huge conversation. We had lots of people at CDC that are public health people that really didn't understand active transportation. So it was a really good push to do that there. I think we took the right things. I mean, we kind of shortchanged food, but food has lots of other places in the county that it has a lot of support with. I think we actually moved some of the food people into the broader conversation. So I'm happy with our partners. I think I might have encouraged more non-funded partners. I mean, the healthcare agency was a non-funded partner. So I might have tried to get OCTA in sooner and make sure that there were more non-funded partners involved in it. That may be the changes that we would have made in it. But you guys are good guys. You did good work. Well, maybe I put it back at you. Do you see something that we could have done or was missing? I mean, you talked about environmental justice missing. Is there something you thought was missing?
Well, I didn't know Dolores and I were going to go back and forth. But, yeah, I guess Barry and brought it up. I agree. I think, just like you mentioned, Dolores, the pitch program was a mechanism to really engage more the food access crowd, that group of advocates, and maybe the environmental angle is a next round as well to form a stronger basis for this collective need, right? And the more partners, that's what I think we're all coming to and really appreciating, the stronger the voice, right?
And I'll also add one more thing too. The environment was also a little bit different from when we first started to the point we're at now. And so there's a lot more going on now that a lot of partners and other folks can take advantage of. A lot of different policies that people can take advantage of, a lot of different funding mechanisms that are a little bit different than the traditional way things are being funded. Foundations, SCAG, OCTA, they're really looking for folks putting in proposals that have collaboration as part of their projects, right? So there's things that are changing and there are more opportunities now than there were in the past. So I just thought I'd add that.
I have a very light, slightly low-fat question. I was just wondering, City of Garden Grove, it was just really exciting, the Open Streets event. Is this something that you're planning on continuing to do annually? What's the plan going forward?
Yes. Bigger and better. Yeah. The third one was 15,000 people. So we've been challenged now on social media quite a bit. I'm really loud like you are, so I didn't really think I needed that. So yes, it's we feel as a community and with our council support that we should move forward. We have very, very strong feedback that people like this. Our challenge as a staff is to find programming that we've never done before to bring to the community to push their minds outside of the box. So that's a challenge for us as staff. So we're very open to suggestions. We love feedback, but we're proud that we did it, but it was scary at first, very scary. So yes, we're looking for funding. Definitely. We're not the only community that's budget challenged, but it was quite an accomplishment, and we have a very excited community to push it forward. So we don't know if we'll be able to pull it off every year, just because of staffing and budget concerns, but it's not going anywhere. So thank you.
You have all been so patient and incredible, and because of time, I'm hoping that we can engage in more informal conversations with our panelists, if that's okay. You guys have been wonderful and patient as well. Can I just have a round of applause to close it out? And the only remarks that I'm going to make before we go, you can please take a break if you need to, but meet with our partners on their tables. The only remark that I want to make is that the impact of OC Pitch has really been on breaking down silos, finding opportunities to deepen these relationships. Because at the end of the day, this is what it's going to take to create healthy communities. So thank you again for your attention, and join us for the informal roundtables.